SPLOST 3 project.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The next 4 agenda items are related to our SPLOST program and will impact 19 schools and facilities. Before I present these items and their specific requirements, I would like to take a brief moment to first review our process in which we procure the vendors and general contractors recommended to provide design and construction services for our capital improvement program. Prior to formal solicitation, all procurement documents are thoroughly reviewed by our general counsel to ensure compliance with Georgia Code 369120 and 369121, the Georgia Department of Education Rule 160-5-4.15 as well as our board policy. Upon final approval from General Counsel, all bid and proposal documents are advertised continuously in our legal organ, the Champion newspaper, and on the district's website for a minimum of 4 weeks prior to the opening of sealed bids or proposals. A mandatory pre-proposal conference is held to provide all interested parties with a detailed overview of the scope of services to be provided under each solicitation, the anticipated project delivery method, as well as an opportunity for questions and answers should there be some presented. A formal addendum is provided to each vendor who attends the mandatory pre-proposal conference in an effort to document all those who attended, as well as provide a formal response to all questions and all questions presented during that meeting. An opportunity to submit additional questions are provided 72 hours prior to the issuance of a final addenda for each project. The final addenda, which will include a response to all questions, in addition to any changes to the plans and specifications related to that unique project, 72 hours prior to the proposal submission due date. All sealed bids are submitted in response to a formal invitation to bid, are open publicly, and each bid is read aloud for recording purposes. The lowest responsible bidder is then subsequently recommended to the Board of Education for their review and consideration. All sealed proposals are collected and open at the designated time and place as advertised in the proposal documentation. An evaluation committee is convened, and each proposal is objectively evaluated in accordance with the evaluation criteria and relative importance for each evaluated factor presented in the proposal documents. The award decision is not based solely on the lowest price, but however the evaluation factors identified in the request for proposals. Subsequently, the most advantageous offeror is recommended to the Board of Education for their review and approval. As it relates to the agenda item before you, Mr. Chair and fellow board members, with this understanding of our process, it is recommended that the Board of Education approve the award of D&A Edwards & Company, the lowest responsible bidder, whose bid meets the requirements and the criteria set forth in the bid documents for construction services for the ADA modification projects in the amount not to exceed $445,600 for ADA Group C and $241,975 for ADA Group C3. This award for this contract will impact approximately 5 elementary schools and the Fernbank Science Center by providing ADA enhancements to the parking lots, main entrances, restrooms, play areas, and gymnasiums at these facilities. The work is scheduled to be completed in the fall of 2014. Mr. Chairman, subject to any questions the board may have, I recommend that this item be placed on the consent agenda.
Could you list the names of the schools that will be impacted? The viewing audience may not have that information.
Yes, sir. The schools that will be impacted are Briar Lake Elementary School, Briar Vista Elementary School, Henderson Mill Elementary School, Fernbank Science Center, as well as Midvale Elementary School, Oak Cliff Elementary School, and Snapfinger Elementary School.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda. SPLOST 4 project, item number 10.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, our next item requests the board's approval to award a lump sum design contract for the architectural and engineering services for Briar Vista Elementary, Midvale Middle School, San Moss Service Center, Briar Lake Elementary, Brockett Elementary, Hawthorne Elementary, and Druid Hills Middle School for capital renewal, ADA, and code requirements in a not-to-exceed value of $365,000 to Hauser Walker Architectural, LLC, as the most responsive and responsible offerer whose proposal meets the requirements and criteria set forth in the proposal documents. As a result of this contract award for design services, Hauser Walker Architecture will provide detailed construction documents for the facility improvements identified for each school and center in support of our voter-approved SPLOST 4 program. The design work is scheduled to be completed in the fall of 2014, at which point our office will issue a formal solicitation for general contracting services for the scope of work to be completed for each of these 7 locations during the 2014-2015 school year. Mr. Chairman, subject to any questions that you or the board may have, I recommend this item be placed on the consent agenda.
Thank you. You want to list the school sites?
Yes, sir. I'll review those as well. Briar Vista Elementary School
Can you give us a little synopsis of what
is happening.
is happening at each one of the sites, not in detail, but just a general synopsis if you can.
Yes, sir. As it relates to, I'll pull this up here.
And while you're looking, I truly appreciate you explaining the process because it's very clear and it give us all clarity on that.
Yes, sir. In brief, Briar Vista Elementary School ADA capital renewal and code requirements will include ADA access to their entrances, restrooms, as well as the replacement of a grease trap backflow preventer. These are some of those items that are related to the building systems. Replacement of interior and exterior doors, a roof replacement, water source heat pumps that are in need of repair, painting of the interior walls, as well as the replacement of the kitchen hood and some additional life safety requirements that are needed. As it relates to Avondale Middle School, the intent is to relocate and install some new emergency equipment shutoffs in the labs for the as it relates to those egress doors, in addition to some additional life safety updates that are appropriate per code. Our San Moss Service Center, there's a great need to replace the roof at the San Moss Service Center. That is part of this expectation, as well as some life safety upgrades that are needed. Briar Lake Elementary, the intent here is some code requirements related to the grease trap and backflow preventer, replacement of the roof on 2 of the existing buildings, 1957 and 1963 buildings, install of a roof ladder, accessibility, as well as some life safety upgrades which are needed. Brockett Elementary School, the intent is to provide grease trap and backflow preventer replacement, replace light fixtures in a large majority of the building. There's a need to upgrade the electrical service to that facility, as well as address some of the issues related to the emergency generator, the kitchen hood, some of the heating and generating systems, as well as replace the clock and PA systems in buildings 61, 63, and 1966, in addition to some life safety support as well. Hawthorne Elementary, similar type issues there at that location. I won't go through them. Druid Hills Middle School, the need to replace, once again, some code requirements related to the grease trap and backflow preventer and fire life safety issues, concerns.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
Is
sir.
there any discussion? Mr. Coleman?
Just have a quick question about the relationship between C10 and C11. The actual projects here seem relatively similar, although we've awarded to different firms, and obviously it's different clusters of schools. Could you talk for a moment just about why those 2 buckets of things were separated out rather than treating this as one lump contract? I'm sure it's obvious, but why were they separated out, and then what was the distinction between the 2 architecture firms that were providing design in each case?
Certainly, and great question. Part of our strategy is to do our best to get as much work in procurement as we possibly can so we can meet the needs of the district in a timely fashion. We solicited these in a sub-region structure in order to allocate funds available for those architectural firms to have a package that's enticing. We originally went out for solicitation and we had smaller packages, and we simply just did not get the response that we desired. So we decided to add additional projects so that we can essentially get those individuals who are providing pricing to consider it, and this is part of that process. And so based on the process that we communicated earlier, we've gone through that process. Some companies decided to bid on both, others did not, and so as part of that process, this was the recommended offer for both of those unique projects.
Mr. Campbell?
I'm looking at items C9 and C10, and Briar Vista Elementary comes up. The engineers in my office hate for me to walk around. I'm an accountant by trade. They hate for me to come. Explain the difference again. What's going on with Briar Vista? On one, there is completion of work for ADA enhancements, and then in the other one, it's the project that you talked about.
Yes,
Distinguish
sir.
the 2 again for me at Briar Vista, if you will.
Sure, no problem. Briar Vista, the enhancements here are to improve the ADA access between interior levels, renovate the hall restrooms for ADA compliance, replace the grease trap backflow preventer, water source heat pump, repair roof openings, as well as replace the interior and exterior doors, replace the water drainage system, paint interior walls, replace the kitchen hood and associated equipment, as well as light fire safety concerns. For Briar Lake, I think is what your other question is, just Briar Vista?
Still
Okay.
Briar Vista.
Yes, sir.
So one is ADA compliance,
Correct.
the major projects that you're speaking of.
Correct.
Thanks again.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McMahon?
All right, so since we're hitting on school in District 2, I guess, Briar Vista. So I see here we're approving, or we're being requested to approve architectural designs, right?
Correct.
But prior to that, it was the construction of ADA.
Correct.
So tell me how does the construction folks know what the design's going to be? Am I confused?
Yeah, let me explain. What you have before you is the agenda item that was previously added to the consent agenda reflects the
Briar Vista, yeah.
reflects the work that was allocated under a separate project. And so we've already awarded that as part of this, or we anticipate awarding that as part of the construction effort. What we're asking for now is the design services to be approved so that we can start working through those additional design elements related to these schools that are identified under the second request for today.
For clarification purposes, it seems like what you just said was that the item 9 for the construction piece was on a previous.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So there's another piece, which is item 10, addressing additional scope of work.
You got it. Yes, sir.
So that leads me to another question, is when we evaluate our facilities, specifically ADA compliance, it looks like we're not addressing all at once. Since we're authorizing construction on ADA at a school, but we're also being requested to authorize architectural designs on an additional scope of work for additional ADA. My question is, why wasn't the ADA done comprehensively for that one facility? It seems like it's being pieced, right? And I get let's group everything together so we can get more projects, but it seems like this is fragmented. And explain to me why it's not, or tell me why it is.
No, great question. Part of the award for the construction is relative to the projects that were under SPLOST 3. And to be honest with you, there was a disconnect between the work that was done under SPLOST 3 as it relates to past history, and we're kind of fixing that, if you will, as it relates to the SPLOST 4 expectations. Our intent is to do the best that we can to coordinate so that we can have the work identified, completed in a timely fashion so that we don't impact the school for a longer period of time. But yes, sir, there was a disconnect between the two.
So, is this a legacy issue, I guess?
You got it. Yes, sir, it is. We're trying to clean up that legacy issue by getting what is absolutely needed currently done as quickly as possible to provide that ADA access. And that's part of the first scope of work under the construction. Some additional items that are needed are part of the SPLOST 4 design package that's going out currently.
Okay, thanks, Josh.
Just being honest. Yeah.
Sometimes, Mr. McMahon, in terms of the dollars coming in as whether it's SPLOST 3 or SPLOST 4, sometimes they have to wait until entitlement funds are available. And I assume that might be some of the situation here where you suggest the time for the entitlement, because the entitlement dollars don't come in until the project is complete. Selected projects are complete.
Correct.
Am I correct in that?
That is correct. The dollars that are allocated for construction are SPLOST 3 dollars. The dollars allocated for the SPLOST 4 design projects are relative to the SPLOST 4 current revenue stream.
Is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda. SPLOST 4 project, item number 11.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, our next item requests the board's approval to award a lump sum design contract for the architectural and engineering services for Canby Lane Elementary School, Kelly Lake Elementary, Cedar Grove Middle School, Columbia Elementary, as well as Cedar Grove High School, and a value of not to exceed the amount of $347,000 to Foreman Seeley Fountain Architecture as the most responsive and responsible offerer whose proposal meets the requirements and criteria set forth in the proposal documents. As a result of this contract, the award of design services to Foreman Seeley Fountain will provide detailed construction documents for the facility improvements identified for each school in support of our voter-approved SPLOST 4 program. The design work is scheduled to be completed in fall of 2014, at which point our office will issue a formal solicitation for general contracting services for the scope of work to be completed at each of these 5 facilities during the 2014-2015 school year. Subject to any questions the board may have, I recommend this item be placed on the consent agenda.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Number 12.
Mr. Chairman, our next item requests the board approval to award a lump sum design build contract for demolition services at the existing Gresham Park Elementary School and a not to exceed amount of $367,324 to Atlanta Demolition, the most responsive and responsible offerer whose proposal meets the requirements as set forth in the proposal documents. As you know, the board has approved the relocation of the new Gresham Park Elementary School to be built at the current Clifton Elementary School site located at 3132 Clifton Church Road in Atlanta, Georgia. Subject to any questions that you may have, I recommend this item be placed on the consent agenda.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? Hearing none, this item will be placed on the consent agenda. Item number 13, district-wide imaging.
Yes, sir. Our final request for the board's approval to extend the District Imaging Solutions contract with Milner, Inc. to provide copy machines and maintenance support for our schools and centers. This request will be the third of 4 possible year-long extensions. In order to ensure quality service is provided by the vendor, for the last 3 years, Mr. Brantley's office has required Milner to send automated surveys to the school buildings after each service order has been completed. His office has compiled the results from each survey and has communicated to our department that their service has been extremely satisfactory. I would like to take a moment to ask Mr. Brantley to elaborate on his findings. After a brief review, Mr. Chairman, I ask that this also be placed on the consent agenda.
So we know last year this was a big point of contention, and we had the information, we just didn't have it compiled to bring it to you. And so since the start of the contract, just so you know, we've received automated service call responses that actually evaluate how the service was, the response time, the attitude displayed, and the professionalism as it relates to the technicians from Milner. And I can say, it was too thick to pass out, and this is just a copy of some of them, and I'll be glad to send it to you, but we had about a 99.9% satisfaction rating, and it includes the actual employee's name, their signature, along with the positive comments or experience that they had regarding the service.
Is there any discussion? Mr. Mayfield?
Yeah, I just had one question, and that is whether or not, I guess simply we monitor the price performance of the service to the market, because this was like a optional 5 years, I think, if I remember correctly, and this is year 3, is that right? And so over the 5-year period, I guess I'm just curious as to whether or not we could have done it for $1.1 million. I don't know.
You know what? I'm sure we could have, and actually the plans are to actually bring to you a second phase of that, which is a managed print solution, which will actually end up saving the district close to approximately $2 million. And so that's coming next, so that we can actively show you that we're being responsible when it comes to printing. So
okay, all right.
No further questions. Is there any opposition to placing this item on the consent agenda? This item will be placed on the consent agenda. District-wide imaging.
That was it.
Oh, that was it.